Oh.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our CLC Connection interview presentation. This is the first presentation in our workshop series with our partners around the corner with the main career center. Today, we are joined by Ms. Shana Brown and Ms. Lisa Gonzales-Hatfield. If you have not had the chance to get to know them, to introduce yourself, today is the perfect day to start that. They will be leading this presentation today on preparing for an interview. Of course, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, connect with a career coach, and get some guidance and some direction on preparing for an interview. If you haven't done an interview in a long time, this is the perfect time to dust off those skills. If you want to sharpen your skills, this is another opportunity for you to do so as well. Additionally, on top of this presentation, in the next 3 weeks, we will have mock interview sessions with these career coaches where you'll be able to practice being in a mock interview. This is an awesome time to brush up on your skills, get that experience under your belt so that when you do go into your official interview, you feel confident, you're able to articulate your words and be the thriving professional that you are to secure your job at your desired career. So without further ado, Miss Lisa and Miss Shanae, I leave it to y'all and let's rock it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for that wonderful introduction. So my name is Lisa, and I am the career coach for the College of Public Service. So if there are any social work, education, or CJ students in attendance today, I'm your career coach.
And my name is Shana Brown, as she mentioned, and I am the career coach for College of Humanities and Social Sciences. So that's the psychology, sociology, history, all the political science and everything like that. So if you all have any questions about what we are presenting to you today, if you want your resume reviewed, if you're not quite sure what you want to do with your major, please feel free to make an appointment to meet with us.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're talking to you about interviewing today. And I think Shanae and I are both pretty informal presenters. So if you have any questions at any point, definitely feel free to unmute your mics and ask away or type in the chat, whatever is best for you. Okay, so the purpose of an interview. So I like to tell students that the interview is not only for the employer, but it's also for yourself. So when we are interviewing with an employer, they are trying to determine why they should hire you over other candidates. What are the unique assets and benefits that you would provide if they did choose you for the job with their company? And how does your personality fit in with those that are already in the office? That's something that we definitely are seeing has grown in importance, is how your personality just meshes with that of everyone else. But again, the interview is also for you. So it's an opportunity for you to sell your strengths, your skills, your unique experiences, but then also to find out if the company and job are a good fit for you. So again, I like to tell students that because I feel like it helps to take away some of the nerves and just help students to remember that, you know, it's okay to go and scope out an organization. If it doesn't feel like a good fit, then it's always okay to turn down a position if offered. And I think that that just kind of helps alleviate some of the anxiety.
Okay, so there was a national study done in which hiring managers were asked what skills they were most looking for within potential candidates. And so these are the top skills that came up repetitively within the different, I guess, organizations or whatever you want to call it. So critical thinking, so that's the problem solving. So if somebody is given something to you, you know, knowing how to research, knowing how to use the resources you have in order to kind of figure out a solution to it, communication. So obviously you guys are practicing that within the classroom, whether it be your presentations, engaging with staff members, faculty members, exchanging ideas, leadership. So recognizing and capitalizing on personal and team strengths to achieve organizational goals, professionalism, which is something that you all are again practicing whenever you are engaging with different staff or faculty members and or, like I said, presentations or anything like that. Teamwork. So those awesome class projects that I know you all love engaging in is actually beneficial because it shows you how to collaborate effectively, especially with people who may not think the same way as you do. Technology. So whether, sorry, so understanding and leveraging technologies to enhance efficiencies, complete tasks, and accomplish goals. So it could be Excel, it could be PowerPoint, it could be whatever like system management software that they're utilizing. Equity and inclusion. So being at one of the most diverse universities in the city of Houston, or in the state of Texas, I should say, you all are also actively engaging with us by being able to encounter different people that from different backgrounds or whatnot. And then lastly is career and self-development. So knowing like your strengths and weaknesses, if knowing kind of where you see yourself in the long run is all important. So I often say this, that if you can't list maybe your top 3 to 5 strengths, that you probably should be doing some type of self-reflection and or taking time to meet with us so we can kind of start deep diving into that.
All right, so just some tips on how to prepare ahead of time for the interview. So it's really important that you do research ahead of time instead of just showing up and hoping for the best. So one thing that you can do is research the company and research the industry in which that company belongs. Look at the company's website. Many organizations will have an About Us section. Maybe they'll have a mission statement or values, something like that. So it's always good to know that ahead of time. I can vouch and tell you that I've been in interviews before where I was asked, how does our personal mission statement align with your own personal mission statement and your values? And that's something that you never want to be caught off guard about. So definitely look at the organization's website, look for recent news stories or online reviews from customers or employees. Just really try to get a good idea of what the organization is about. Study the job description carefully. I think it's always good to know what are the specific qualifications that they are looking for so you can make sure and hit on those areas when you are asked about your experiences in the interview. So know about the qualifications that they're seeking and even the responsibilities that this role would have. Know who you are interviewing with. I think it's always a great idea to do a little research on your interviewers themselves as well. LinkedIn is a really great tool for learning more about our interviewers. And I think it's always impressive when you can show up to an interview and know who exactly you would be working with if you were to be hired for the job. Do a Google search for interview questions for the title of the position that you applied for. I think that this is a great way to just kind of almost like we would for an exam, find some questions, maybe jot down some notes about how we would answer those and then study it. Aside from Google, we also recommend a website called glassdoor.com. Um, it's typically thought of as a job search board, but there is a drop down menu at the top where you can click on an arrow and select interviews. So if you're interviewing with an organization where someone has indicated what questions they were asked, you can find that on glassdoor.com. So let's say that you were interviewing with Harris County, for example. You can type in Harris County, select interviews from that drop-down menu, and you'll see a list of questions that other people were asked in their interviews. And that's always a great tool for prepping.
Yes, I definitely agree. And to touch back on the, I guess, the knowing the company and the positions that you applied for, I think I've had a couple of people say, like, we've called them for like a, like a phone screening and they're like, what job is this? Like, I don't remember like applying for this. So you don't ever want to be caught in one of those situations. Be sure that you're keeping track of the companies that you're applying for, the positions that you're applying for. So when you do get that phone call, whether it be 2 or 3 months later, because some hiring people, the process takes a little bit longer than normal, that you're not kind of caught off guard about what you are applying for or what you're interviewing for. Okay, so now we're going to deep dive into some different scenarios in terms of in-person, virtual, and over the phone. So if you are in person, obviously you want to make sure that you have your clothes cleaned and ready to go. You don't want to like feel rushed or like wrinkly, or if you do accidentally like see that you spilled something on there and you never got it out, that you're kind of caught in a situation where you look quote unquote dirty, whatnot. So making sure that everything is clean and ready to go. Is going to be important. Familiarize yourself with the interview's place location, especially in the city of Houston. We know there's always traffic, so you don't want to, plan that you thought it was 10 minutes and it really ends up taking you 20, and so you end up being late and maybe automatically disqualifying you for that position. So always plan ahead and make sure that you are taking all like worst case scenarios into effect whenever you are leaving for that. Also, you want to have a portfolio with extra copies of your resume. So sometimes, if the printer breaks or if they're not able to print off enough copies, you'll be prepared and you come off very professional having copies of your resume with you.
Okay, so if you're interviewing over the phone, you want to have notes neatly organized in front of you, just in case you need them. And that's one of the beautiful things about a phone interview is that they can't see you. So you can have things like notes, maybe your resume in front of you, so that you can review your experiences in case we kind of get that nervous brain fog, as well as maybe some notes about the organization. You want to make sure that your phone is charged. The last thing that you want is for your phone to die in the middle of an interview. So make sure that it's charged ahead of time. And then, of course, be prepared to answer a phone call from a number that you don't recognize. I know now we get so many spam calls. I can't even tell you how many calls I receive on the daily about my automobile's warranty. I'm sure you all can relate to that. But when you are applying for jobs, you have to be prepared to answer questions from calls that you don't recognize. And if it is some sort of spam call, you can quickly hang up, but you don't want to miss the opportunity of an employer reaching out just because you didn't recognize the number.
Okay, so virtual tips. Obviously, there have been, I would say, more popularity in terms of virtual interviewing. And so in order to kind of prepare for that, you want to make sure that you, again, are dressing properly. I know a lot of people like to, have the, party on the bottom and professional on top. But you do really actually want to dress full, like you were going in person. In addition, you always want to test out the platform that they send you. So sometimes they'll send you a link. You always want to make sure that there's nothing extra that you have to download or anything like that. So test it out. Make sure that the camera is set up and don't have a cluttery background. You can see in some of these pictures that there's so much going on in the background. And so they see all that whenever they are reviewing you. This person also has their dog with her. So making sure that you clear out the space of all animals so they don't cause a distraction or anything like that. And then, yeah, and I think that's it.
Okay, and then we also want to encourage you to utilize Jobs for Gators. If you've never been in Jobs for Gators before, you can access it on our website, which is uhd.edu/career. You will see this Jobs for Gators logo, and below that will be a link that says student/alumni login. So that's where you will click. You'll use your Blackboard username and Blackboard password to log in. If you've never been in the system before, it's going to ask you a series of questions to get your profile set up. And what the system will do is start notifying you about potential opportunities, events, things like that, that match up with the responses that you indicated. So when you are in Jobs for Gators, you can schedule coaching appointments with your career coach by clicking on the Coaching and Calendar tab on the left-hand side of your homepage. Or you can also try our mock interview module, which I believe is under the resources tab on that menu on your homepage. If you click on that, you can find mock interviews for a variety of positions. There's everything from teaching to social service to anything that you can think of. We've all put in different positions, and then there were some already in the system itself. So if you have an interview coming up and maybe it's 2 in the morning and you want to practice and know that us career coaches are snoring away in our beds, but you want some extra practice time, you can always go into Jobs for Gators and utilize that mock interview module as well. They are pre-recorded questions, and you will be responding via video. So definitely something that we encourage you to check out if you've not done so already.
Yeah, and then you can also, if you just want to have one of us review your video, you are more than welcome to share it with us as well. So you don't have to, you can, record yourself as many times as you want, look back and give yourself feedback. But if you want somebody else to review it, you're more than welcome to share that, that mock interview with us as well. So the next thing, so Dress for Success, just some tips in terms of what to wear. We usually err on the side of overdressing rather than under. If you're not quite sure what you should be wearing, we always try to recommend business professional. So job interviewing attire, solid dark colors. You don't want anything with, crazy stripes. You may have a great sense of style, but this may not be the time to showcase that. Maybe once actually you get the job, if you want to show up with a more, I guess, personal suit that you have or dress that you might have, that might be a time for that. But in terms of before you get the job, just keep it very basic and casual. Well, not casual, but very basic when it comes to the colors. So you want to have closed-toed shoes for men and for women. And then obviously for business casual, it's more so like what do you call it? Without the jacket. So everything like the blazers, cardigans, flats, skirts and dresses. So you don't want to wear any jeans, short sundresses or any type of athletic wear. You still kind of want to have it a little bit more dressy. And so general recommendations that your clothes should fit. It should be in good condition, wrinkle and lint free. You want to have well-groomed hair, nails, makeup. We usually say no fragrance. So you never know who's allergic to what or who might have a reaction to anything that you're as far as your fragrance. So definitely want to stray away from that. Piercings and tattoos. You want to, if you can cover it, do so. Whenever I go in interviews, I have a nose ring. I usually tend to take it out. And then if it's acceptable to wear it at work, then I'll put it back in. If not, then, I just leave it out. So it just depends on the work environment that you're going into. And obviously you want to be conscious of your cell phone. You don't want your cell phone going off in the middle of the interviews, making sure that it is either on silent or turned off and out of sight.
All right. And then some tips for during the interview. So if you are interviewing over the phone, you want to be sure and still smile. It can be heard in your voice. So even though they can't physically see your smile, they will be able to hear it, through your tone and the enthusiasm that's in your voice. Dress for the interview. I know, again, like Shanae mentioned, it's so easy now during the pandemic to just stay in our pajamas or sweats, especially when we know that we're not going to be seen like for a phone interview. But I feel like when you dress up, it just kind of puts you in that mode of, professionalism. So definitely consider dressing up for the interview as if you were dressing for an in-person interview. Avoid any sort of distractions. Close the door to the area that you're using for the phone interview so that you won't be disrupted by pets or family members or any other noise that's in the background. Feel free to use and take notes, as I mentioned earlier. This is a really great resource that you can utilize during phone interviews. And then be sure and get contact information for your interviewers so that you can follow up after the interview. We always encourage sending some sort of thank you email within 24 to 48 hours. The sooner the better. If you are interviewing face to face, we do have here shake hands firmly. However, I feel like that has probably changed with COVID, where the handshake is kind of something that's a little not in practice right now. So I would say kind of base it off of what you see your interviewer doing. If you see them extend their hand and you feel comfortable, go ahead and make sure to shake their hand firmly. If they do not extend their hand, maybe give them a little wave when you introduce yourself and just say, hi, my name is Lisa Hatfield. Really excited to be here today. Glad to meet you. So again, just kind of base that off of what the interviewer does, if they extend their hand or not. Be aware of what your body language is communicating. Interviews are just very commonly something that is nerve-wracking for so many of us. And so when we are nervous, we tend to do things like slouch our shoulders, or maybe have nervous fidgeting, playing with our hair, playing with jewelry, things like that. So you want as much as possible to project confidence. So be sure and sit up straight, smile, use your hands sparingly. This is something that I struggle with, so I've got to I've got to be conscious about using my hands. And again, just avoiding those nervous tics like swiveling in your chair or playing with hair or jingling jewelry, things like that. Make sure to hold eye contact during the conversation. We know, here in the United States, making eye contact just conveys respect, but it also shows that you're engaged in the conversation. So making and holding eye contact is important.
Oops. Sorry, that was my phone. Okay. So trying to put that on silent. Okay, so if you are doing a virtual interview, as we mentioned, you definitely want to make sure that you are dressing as if it were in person, and you want to avoid wearing white, as it can appear too bright and kind of wash out your facial details. So if you want to check and see if something looks good, like I mentioned, turning your camera on, seeing what the lighting is, and seeing how your outfit looks with through the lens of the computer would be different than if you were just looking in a mirror. So smile, as you mentioned, stay focused, avoid checking your text messages, email, Facebook, etc. You definitely want to keep water close by just in case you do kind of get nervous and want to make sure that you kind of, have a refreshing light for your palette or whatnot. Create quick access to important documents, such as your resume, any references. Definitely want to have the jobs description printed out and nearby, just so you can, again, make sure that you're touching on everything that you need to be touching on. Excuse me. Connect with the hiring professional on time, keeping time zone differences in mind. So making sure that if it's in Eastern time, because that's where the company or that recruiter is based out of, that you have all of that good to go and you're not running late or early. Keep a phone close by as backup, just in case there's some connection issues. Project confidence by sitting up straight. Resist temptation to watch yourself on the monitor. So it's really easy to look at yourself versus the camera whenever you're presenting, or not presenting, but whenever you are doing an interview. So whenever you look into the camera, it gives the impression that you are making eye contact with that person. And so whenever you are answering a question, look into the camera. Whenever the recruiter or the hiring manager is speaking, you can kind of look at the screen itself. So Refrain from doing anything distracting, such as swiveling, rocking your chair, tapping your fingernails, pin on the desk, jingling noisy jewelry. Use and take notes. So as I mentioned, having the job description, having your resume, having just maybe some pointers of your strengths, your weaknesses, some stories that you want to make sure that you touch on. You can put all of those on sticky notes, and then have them directly like behind the camera and or like right next to it. So that way, whenever you are looking directly at the camera, you can't really tell that you might be using something as a guidance or like as a note to make sure that you touch on that.
So some tough but common interview questions. So these are just some of the questions that we know, an employer may ask you. So number one, tell me about yourself. That is just a very general question, but you would be surprised at some of the responses that we get when we conduct mock interviews with students. So the most important things to focus on are your education and work. Of course, talking about positive experiences. It's always best to avoid any sort of negative opinions or feelings when speaking about former work experience. That's just going to paint you in a bad light where the employer may be worried that you'll bring that attitude into their workplace. So definitely want to share positive experiences about your education and your former work experiences. And then I always think it's a good idea to kind of transition into the next question by telling the interviewer why it is that you applied for this specific position. So what was your motivation? Was it the organization itself? Was it the role that you felt like maybe was a good fit for you? Give them an idea of what were the motivating factors behind applying for that job. So you want to avoid any sort of personal information. You don't need to tell them your name because you've already introduced yourself. Most likely, you don't want to give them an age or talk about marital status or if you have children. Things like that can be discriminated against. And so we want to avoid giving away any sort of really personal information that may make them hesitate. What are your strengths and weaknesses? It can be difficult to identify our strengths if we are humble. So I always encourage students to ask those around you, ask professors, ask friends, ask classmates, like, hey, what do you think that I really excel at? Even like group project members, you could ask, what pieces did you really feel like I was most helpful in with this group project? And maybe that will give you a couple of ideas of some strengths that you can indicate when asked this question in an interview. When it comes to weaknesses, the most important thing is to, first of all, be honest and not say that you don't have any weaknesses. We hear that pretty frequently when we're doing mock interviews with students, and we are all human. Therefore, we all have weaknesses. So be honest about that. And again, this is another area where you can seek insight from those around you, those who know you the best, maybe family members, and try to tell your interviewer what you're doing to improve upon that weakness. Public speaking is a very common fear. So, doing things like participating in a Toastmasters organization, where you have to do more public speaking would be, kind of an example of how you would be improving upon that weakness. So we want to make sure that you provide examples. Shanae brought up a great point to me when we were putting this presentation together. If you say that communication is one of your strengths, but you don't give an example of your strong suit in communication, then it really doesn't benefit you. So be prepared to give examples that line up with those strengths when you are expressing them to the employer. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is such a common question, and I know that it can be difficult to answer because sometimes we really don't know. And things happen, life changes. But I always think that the best response is to indicate that you're interested in advancement with this same organization. So talking about, how you're interested in some sort of supervisory role, or, even just a promotion, so thinking about the different advancement opportunities that are available within that same organization, I think is always a great response. Why should we hire you? So many times when we're applying for jobs, there are people there that have maybe some similar experiences to us. So it's so important to think about what differentiates us from everyone else. What unique experiences have you had? What unique accomplishments have you achieved? What are some of the skills that you bring to the table that maybe other people don't know, or don't have? So think about the unique pieces that make you an asset to an organization. And then, of course, you want to remind them about your relevant experiences, your education, and also how your personal values align with the company values. Recent studies have shown that this is something that employers are looking for when they're asking this question, how your values align with those of the company. So again, the structure of business is kind of changing where we're focusing a little bit more on personality and values. So that's just something to think about.
Okay, some additional questions. So tell me about a time you experienced a conflict and how you handle it. Obviously, everyone has had a conflict at some point in time, whether it be in the classroom, whether it be at the job, if you're working, obviously, retail or anything similar. You've had a upset customer that may not have like the product or whatnot, or felt like the customer service wasn't what it needed to be. So talking through those situations, saying how you're able to hopefully stay calm in those situations and utilize your professional skills in order to kind of manage the situation effectively. Tell me about a time you worked as a team to accomplish a goal. As I mentioned before, teamwork and/or collaboration is one of the top skills that employers are looking for. So obviously you want to be able to have a time where, again, whether it be in the classroom or outside of it, where you had to work as a team in order to accomplish a goal. Give me an example of when you tried to accomplish something and failed. What did you learn from the experience? So again, because nobody is perfect, everybody should have some situation in which they tried to do something and maybe it didn't turn out quite the way that you thought it was going to, and/or you noticed that there were some things that you could do better next time, or if you completely failed a test because you didn't utilize the correct study skills or whatnot in order to do so. And then maybe the next one you learned how to prepare more effectively. It just kind of shows that you have humility, and you're able to kind of recognize again when you've done something wrong. So the next one is, tell me about the time when you had multiple projects to work on at once. How did you prioritize your tasks? So again, your ability to organize, exercise sound judgment, and problem solve by saying, okay, I noticed that I had committed to all these situations. How did you go about deciding what's important, what's not important? Did you ask for help? Did you not ask for help? Did you, stay up late and, make sure that everything was done? Kind of what's your process? There's not necessarily going to be a right or wrong answer. It's just a way for them to figure out how you manage multiple tasks. And so whenever you are answering questions, you can use the STAR format. It's also, I think, PAR, P-A-R format, if that's easier for you to remember. So the first one is the situation, the task, the action, and the result. Also, whenever you are doing bullets for your resume, this is kind of the same format that you want to use in a more shortened version, so to speak. So the situation here, upper management was frustrated that line workers did not seem to understand their impact on customer satisfaction and profits. The task, I was an HR intern assisting the HR director with special projects. The action, so what I did, I think a lot of times when people start talking, they talk about what the group did. A lot of times they want to know what you did specifically to contribute to whatever happened, whatever that goal was. So seeing if you can identify the specific thing that you did, whether it be managing certain tasks, and or if you were the delegating different tasks out, or if you were the mediator, whatever role that you played, make sure that you touch on that to show it wasn't just everybody coming together to accomplish a goal. It was something that you did to help be successful. So again, with the action, I suggested a meeting with each of the work groups to make tangible goals to increase efficiency and quality, then display those ideas on large, bright posters. And then the result, customer complaints decrease in key areas, and key expenses decrease as well. And so whenever you are going through answering those questions, the ones that we just touched on, making sure that whenever you're preparing for those, that you're writing out something similar to this, and then whenever you're saying it, it sounds a little bit more natural.
Okay, so just some tips for you to kind of keep in mind for any interview that you have. First of all, you want to be sure that you listen to the entirety of the interviewer's question. So we may feel like we can anticipate what they're going to ask, but you could never be 100% certain. And so that's why you want to make sure that you listen to the entirety of the question, and also just to be respectful. We want to make sure that we're not cutting anybody off, during the interview process. So make sure that we listen to the whole question before we're providing a response. Another good tip, if you're having a hard time answering a question, it's perfectly acceptable to ask for a minute to think about the response rather than just sitting in silence. So many times when I do mock interviews with students, they may get caught off guard by a certain question. And so I'll have students that sit there either looking at me awkwardly or looking up at the ceiling, or maybe they're like, making some noises to show that they're struggling on how to answer this question. So you can always say, that's a very difficult question. Can I have a moment to think about it? And that tells the interviewer, okay, there's going to be a pause in the interview, and that may allow for you to kind of refocus and get yourself back on track. I know sometimes when we get caught off guard by certain questions, it can just make us nervous, and maybe we feel like we lose focus a little bit. So this will give you an opportunity to just get yourself back on track. If you don't understand the interviewer's question, definitely ask for clarification. It's always better to ask for clarification than to give the wrong response for a question. So if they use terminology that you don't understand, or maybe you didn't hear them the first time, maybe they asked the question quietly and you couldn't hear it. Be sure and ask for clarification, or ask for them to repeat the question so you can make sure you give them an adequate response for what it is that they want to ask of you. Always ask questions at the conclusion of your interview if given the chance. So I've sat on hiring committees for many different positions, and this is something that is usually scored. So what happens is, if an employer says, well, do you have any questions for us? And you say no, you may actually get a 0 for that particular question. So you always want to be prepared with some questions to ask ahead of time. I think at least 2 to 3 questions, not too many, where they're like, okay, we've got to move on to the next person we're interviewing, or maybe move on with the workday. But at least a few good questions that just show that you are interested in the company and want to know a little bit more about them and what they do. So we've got some examples here for you, like, what qualities would an ideal person for this job have? What do you like or dislike about working for this company? I think during an interview, establishing a connection with the people who are interviewing you is so important. And part of that is just asking questions where they get an opportunity to share their own opinions or their own insight. I think allows for you to kind of make that personal connection. Before leaving, re-express your interest in the job and tell the interviewer why you're a good fit for their company. This is just kind of a way to kind of exit the interview. You know, you can say something like, "Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with me today. I really feel like your organization and this job are a perfect fit with my experiences and my education. So I do again appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today and hope to hear from you soon." Just something very simple, but again is a way that reminds them of why you're a good fit for the job. It can be very hard to not ask about salary information, but we encourage you not to do that during your interview. Um, so many times positions that are posted online without the salary range just kind of make us question, what that salary might look like. Is it low? Is it too low? But I want for you to kind of think that regardless of whatever a salary is, whether it's below your means or not, this interview is going to help you prepare for future interviews. So it's not a waste of your time if you feel that the salary doesn't meet your requirements. So be sure not to ask about salary during the interview. It just comes off as, maybe that you're not well intentioned for the job and you're thinking only about the money. And we want to make sure that the organization knows that you are committed to their company values and to the responsibilities that you would have for the role. I also like to tell students, we can talk to you about salary negotiation. So we want to book them first. And then once they've offered us a position and told us the salary, then we can always come back and try to negotiate for more money. And many times I've seen students be successful at that, at being able to get a little bit more than what was first offered. So there's definitely ways to go about that. I'll usually tell students, put a letter together that showcases, your experiences and your skills and your education and how those are unique, and maybe, talk about cost of living expenses and things like that. If you've got to drive maybe a distance, you can talk about mileage. So there's different ways that we can put together a salary negotiation for you after you've been offered the job. So let's wait for that. And then make sure that you follow up. So I expressed earlier, we want for you to send some sort of thank you note or email within 24 to 48 hours of your interview. The sooner the better. Sometimes hiring committees make decisions rather quickly. They may meet even at the conclusion of your interview to decide who they're going to bring back for second rounds of interviews, or maybe who they're going to hire for the position outright. So the sooner that you can send that thank you, the better.
And that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for being a part of this. If you all have any questions, please feel free to ask. And if you could also take this quick survey, we would appreciate it, just so we can get adequate feedback and make sure that you guys learned something today.
Shanae and Lisa, thank you so much for this awesome presentation on preparing for an interview. That was a wealth of knowledge. For our attendees, please complete this survey for them. Let our coaches know how they did, and stop by. Stop by to begin preparing for your future interview. And it's always a good resource to get connected to those who are advocates in your career preparation while you're still in school. Now that we've wrapped up the presentation, if you all have questions, this is the time for you to ask away. I see them rolling in already, so we're going to address them one by one. Starting off with Anna, she wants to know, What advice do you have for graduating seniors looking for jobs and interviewing?
Okay. Sinead, do you want to jump on that or you want for me to jump on it? We both can.
Yeah, if you want to start, you can, and I'll finish up.
So when it comes to advice for seniors, I mean, the first thing that you need to do is get yourself into our office ASAP. So often, students will wait until they've graduated to come back and utilize our services, and that's, in my opinion, a big mistake. We have employers that communicate with our office regularly about openings that they have, and so the more that we know you, the more likely that we are to recommend you or to reach out to you if we know of opportunities that would be a good fit for you. So definitely, connect with your career coach early, update your resume. Sometimes we'll get seniors in our offices that haven't done a resume since high school, or, it's very outdated, doesn't have recent internship experience or recent job experience on there. So definitely, update your resume, upload it to Jobs for Gators so that your career coach can take a look at it for you and give you feedback. Sometimes that process can be a little lengthy of us going back and forth with you about our feedback, but we promise it's for the best. We want for you to have documents that really showcase you in the most marketable way. So I think that those are some important things. I also think it's important to kind of start working on your networking game. Right now, the pandemic has kind of had us limited with in-person networking opportunities. So I do encourage all of you, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, create one. LinkedIn, we know about 80% of recruiters utilize LinkedIn for researching candidates. Some places are hiring exclusively through LinkedIn, so they're not even posting jobs on job boards or anything like that. They're going and posting them on LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, create one and network with people there. Type in the search bar titles of positions that interest you or companies that interest you, and you're going to get a list of names that pop up, and you can connect with those people, send them a message, let them know, hey, you are in this specific role. It's something that I've been interested in for a while, and I would love to know more about, your personal career journey and how you got to where you are today. So those are just some tips that I have. Sinead, anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, you touched on everything. I think the biggest thing that I see is that, for example, I work with health and behavioral science students, and so they'll come, they have this degree, and now they're looking for a job, but they've never volunteered. They've never, if they want to work with children, they, have never, mentored or do anything like that, and so it's kind of difficult, just because even though you're applying for entry level jobs, they still want somebody with something, a little bit of experience, like whether it could have been, a couple of hours in a month or something like that, that you volunteered at, Big Brothers Big Sisters or something like that. And so that just that little bit has enough for you to get the experience that you need in order to kind of get the jobs that you're looking for. So definitely, if you are a senior, I know it's the COVID is outside and whatnot, but there's still opportunities, whether it be remote and or something that is safe for you to participate in. And if you need help with that, feel free to reach out to us.
Yes, good point.
To follow up with Anna's question, do you also help with graduate school interviews and the graduate school process?
Yes, we do. We typically see students for help with the personal statement writing, but we have also supported students in other ways. When it comes to graduate school, we can help research different programs with you. I have actually sat with students as they completed the entire application because they just wanted to make sure that they didn't miss anything. And so that's something that I've done as well. And I have also helped prep students for graduate student interviews. So yes, those are definitely things that we can help you with. Danae, anything else to add?
No, that's
Okay.
Awesome.
Yay.
Lisa, I know you mentioned a little bit that earlier about the fidgeting and how to, stay focused and not do too much with your hands. What are some best practices that you have applied in your interview experience on avoiding cotton mouth or excessive nerves?
Yes,
practice. Yeah.
that cotton mouth can definitely be a killer. I know. That's why when it comes to that particular issue, we will recommend that you have water close by. This is easy if you're doing a phone interview. It should be simple if you're doing a virtual interview to have your own water. Many times in face-to-face, you'll have the interviewer offer you either a glass of water or a bottle of water. I always say take it, just in case your throat does get dry. You can, kind of refresh and be able to speak again. Of course, I have also seen in interviews where people drink excessively as a nervous tick. So there's definitely a balance to it. You don't want to use that as a nervous tick. You want to only take advantage of drinking that water when and if your throat goes dry. I did see someone mention something about excessive sweating. Stress sweat is definitely a real thing. Um, I would recommend, I know there's certain fabrics that I think will make me sweat a little more. So be conscious about things like that. Um, use a really good deodorant, uh, an antiperspirant, try a few out, ahead of time, maybe on a run or something like that where you would be sweating a little more. But yeah, I know, interviews are very nerve-wracking thing. I think practicing is just always a good idea. Having somebody else that can see maybe some of those nervous tics that you have that you may not be aware of, like swiveling in that chair or playing with your hair or using your hands excessively. So having someone that is practicing the interview with you and can say, hey, did you realize that you actually use your hands quite a bit when you're answering questions? So those are just kind of some of the tips that I have when it comes to kind of trying to prevent those nervous tics. What about you, Shanae? Anything you want to add?
No, like it's just practicing. And if if maybe you showed up really early and now you're still like pouring down sweat, see if you can go to the bathroom and just tap it with little tissue or something like that and get there and rock it. That's all I got.
Wonderful tips. Wonderful. I'm laughing at the excessive nervous sweating because it is real.
Yeah.
It is real. It is very real. And that's why that's why I say check those fabrics, because there are just some that just, no one wants to have a pit ring during their interview, right? So think about those things ahead of time, or maybe put a jacket on top, even though that may make you a little more sweaty, but it's going to hide, any armpit sweat that you may have. So just kind of think of some of those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great questions, y'all. And we have a few more, so we're going to keep this rolling. The next Shanae is for you. So after you complete the interview and you haven't received feedback about if you got the job or not, how do you handle that process? Do you wait? Do you follow up? Because a lot of times we apply for a job and we don't hear anything back. Sometimes they do make that phone call and it is not the news that we were hoping for. So what are some best practices in handling those situations?
Yes, definitely. So in terms of interviewing, after I'm done asking my follow-up questions, my last question is, do you have an interview timeline? A timeline as far as bringing somebody on board, or what are the next steps or whatnot. And so that way they can give it to you over the next 2 weeks. We plan on meeting with different candidates, you should be hearing back from us within hopefully 2 to 3 weeks or within the week. That way, if the week passes and you still haven't heard anything, you can always, yes, send that follow-up email and or reach it back out to the person that interviewed you to just see if they have any feedback in terms of where you are in their process, and or if they've decided to move on with other candidates. Sometimes I know we'll get that dreaded email at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the morning saying that they've decided to choose other people. So if you haven't gotten that, definitely feel free to reach out. In terms of just applying for a job or interviewing in general, if you didn't ask that question about the follow-up, the timeline, I would definitely wait at least a week before following up. I think that, obviously everybody's busy. So a little bit longer than 48 hours in terms of reaching back out to them. Lisa, you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that you covered it. We do know, like when it comes to networking, for example, we know that sometimes it can take up to 8 pieces of communication before somebody actually responds. So just be patient. As Shanae said, people are busy. If you're looking for a job right now or around this time frame with the holidays approaching, people are going to be even busier. So just try to be patient. Definitely make those contacts. But just understand that it may take a little bit of time for somebody to get back to you.
It's always the nail biting piece, but
Yeah.
no answer is a good answer, and until you get the answer,
Yes, the waiting is the hard part for sure.
Yes. To our cover letters, what is an acceptable word count for a cover letter and a resume? How long should resumes be for college graduates?
As far as word count, I think that we focus more on page length than we do word count. So we do encourage you to keep your resumes and cover letters each to 1 page. Any more than that, and it may just seem too long for an employer to have to read through. So for the cover letter, the most important piece of the cover letter really is just showing your connection to the company. So we have what I like to call the kiss butt paragraph. That's important to include in there, where we're kissing the butt of the organization and telling them all the reasons why we think that they're great and why we belong with them. So we can do that within a page, also providing some examples in a little more detail than on our resume, but a few examples of how our experiences, education, and skills align with what it is that they're looking for in the candidate. So those are the most important things to get across. And again, like I said, a page, any more than that, and they might be discouraged to read through the whole thing. And same for resume, we tell you to try to keep it to about a page. Of course, we know some of our UHD students come to us with decades of experience. So if you have had a little more experience, I personally feel like it's okay to go onto a second page, but I don't recommend having any more than 2 pages. It is a little different when it comes to applying for graduate school. Most graduate schools want something called the CV, the curriculum vitae. So that can be a little bit longer in length. Because we want for you to really go into detail about your presentations, projects, research, things like that. So that can be a little bit longer of a document. But when we're applying for jobs, we want to keep that document concise and try to keep it to about a page. Shanae, anything to add to that?
Nope, 1 page. Just remember you're dealing with people. Our attention span is very short. So you always want to put the most important stuff at the top. And then that way, if they do start trailing off or kind of skim reading, that they're not missing what you really want them to know about you. So always important stuff at the top.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I want to say that the average is like 6 seconds. seconds that a person takes to review a resume, just 6. So they're looking for certain key pieces, which is another reason why we tell you to kind of make your section headings stand out. So that if they want to go directly to see your education, for example, they should be able to find that easily in your document. So 6 seconds, that's the average. So that's pretty quick.
That's, wow.
Yeah, you put like hours of time and effort into this resume and this application, and
Yes. And speaking to time and putting into applying for jobs and keeping up with the positions, I know in my experience when I was coming out of undergrad and grad school, I applied to many jobs. What are some best practices on keeping up with all the positions and the companies you are applying to, so you don't get the phone call and wondering, did I apply for this job? What was this? Everything like that. What are some best practices you guys have?
yeah. I mean, Excel or whatever program is easiest for you to kind of manage all that. I know specifically like higher ed jobs, it's just a website, but they have like, they keep track of what job you applied to. So you can kind of know like, oh, on this date, this is what I applied for, this date, this is what I applied for. So you can, if you're using a website similar to that, then you can, utilize that in order to kind of manage what position is what, but definitely just either writing it down if you're a writer, and or using like Excel or some other type of organization system to kind of keep track of everything. That way, if it is something that you really want, you can follow back up with it 2 weeks after you apply or whatnot, just to kind of see where you are in the process if you haven't gotten that denial letter, and or you haven't gotten any type of update on where you are.
Perfect, thank you. And are your services right now virtual or exclusively virtual or in person at the moment?
So our services are in person, over the phone, or virtually. So we are offering all 3 modes of service delivery, just so that we can try to accommodate all of our students for whatever they feel safe doing. So yes, we have our services in all 3 delivery modes, and our office right now is open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We are available virtually until 6, Monday through Thursday, during our drop-in. So there's a link to our virtual drop-in room on our website. So if you have a quick question, you can drop in there until 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, but our physical office is open until 5, Monday through Friday.
Perfect. And they're right around the corner, y'all. If you come from the library or the main elevators on the 3rd floor and hit the 4th floor, you'll run right into them, right on your way to supplemental instruction or the ATA office. So I encourage you all to stop by when you get the chance. And Shanae and Lisa, do y'all have any upcoming events that our students can possibly attend?
We do. We have some employer info sessions. Don't quote me on the day. Do you know, Lisa, off the top of your head?
I don't. And Jesse just sent a message that he was going to lunch. So what we can do, Ashley, is we can get with Jesse to ask about any upcoming employer information sessions, and we can share those dates with you so that you can share them with ATA.
We would love that. We would love that. I think one of our students is attending the personal statement session that y'all have for grad school. Yeah, so she shared that with me earlier today, that she's excited about that event. So if you share them, we'll pass them along, and I know that our students will be happy to be able to meet with you all and attend your sessions. Do we have any other questions before we wrap up today? Any questions in the chat?
What's SBP? Do you know what SBP stands for, Lisa?
No. Is somebody asking that?
No, I looked on his calendar. There's an info session today, but I don't know.
He did just mention, you know what? It's well, no, because I was gonna say Spring Branch, but no, it's not gonna be them. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. They may have registered for the career fair that we decided not to have, so definitely
Yeah,
check.
there's an info session today at 3. If I get that information, I'll shoot it to you, Ashley. And then if you want to send it out to any students that may be free at that time to go ahead and join in. That way you can learn about the employer and whatever the positions that they have open.
Awesome, thank you. I'd appreciate that. If any questions in the lounge, y'all? Y'all have any questions? Okay, so we have one more coming in. We have a few students in the lounge.
Yay!
Hope next week we hope to have you all in our ATA lounge. It's a bigger space, and when we do our workshop mock interview series, this is where we'll be hosting it. And for those who have registered to attend, don't forget to dress for success. I know that this is a mock interview, but still treat this as if you're showing up for the real thing, so that way you get to the real thing and you're ready.
Yes, we're looking forward to it.
Adrian, you have you can say it out loud now.
All right. So when you've successfully been approved for the position you've applied to, is it acceptable to send a thank you gift or a card?
Great question.
You said that if you get offered a position,
Yes.
so you should always send a thank you email whenever you do an interview and or they, do phone screening or anything like that. You should always send a thank you email regardless if you get the position or not. So if you do actually get the offer, then you can definitely reach out with an email. I don't think you have to send a gift or anything like that.
Yes, and the emails are so much faster. It used to be that a handwritten note
Yeah.
just showcase that you were making the extra effort, but now with snail mail and tight deadlines, we just always recommend doing the email so that it'll get to the person faster.
A basket may be conflict of interest if it's over a certain dollar amount. So yeah.
Like no more than
Yeah.
Once you get acclimated to your position and your colleagues, then you can
Yeah.
Although I love the idea, like I'm thinking how funny it would be to show up at a new job with like one of those gigantic teddy bears and be like, thank you so much for hiring
this
me.
job, right?
Here's my gift to the office.
Yeah.
As nice as that would be, what we're gonna do with the bear. Yeah. It may happen. It may happen. So
Now I'm kind of thinking about it. The next job maybe showing up with a giant bear.
yes. Great question, y'all. Adriel, great question. Thank you all for attending our CLC workshop. We are excited to be able to collaborate with other offices on campus to advocate and serve transfer students. To Shanae and Lisa, thank y'all so much for being a part of the ATA family. Y'all been with us from the very beginning. So to see y'all still here, being a part of the ATA program and expanding on the work that we're doing, it is greatly appreciated. Do you all have any parting words before we wrap up tonight? Or this afternoon?
Don't just come in and visit us. Even if you don't want to actually meet with us, at least upload your resume so we can start reviewing it if you haven't done so already. So
yeah, and we love what we do. It's truly a joy for me to get to know each and every one of my students, to know about them, about their goals, and how I can really be of service to them in making those goals a reality. So just know that we enjoy what we're doing. It's not just a job for us. It's something that that really means something to us. So definitely feel comfortable coming to us because we're here for you.